people to get back to work and to allow our lives to start recovering. Because, even though right now we're still looking at a state budget deficit of $54 billion, the county's looking at $1 billion deficit, and while the city's been able to absorb losses from sales tax revenues, if this keeps going, we're going to start having real hard discussions, so we've got to look at restarting safely and quickly.
Now, you're talking about restarting and specifically business now. I want to ask you, what would you do on the city council to assist small businesses during this hard time?
Again, the biggest one is really just getting us going. Now, what we can do is when it comes time to start looking at fees and the annual increases that we usually do for the different business fees, maybe we should look at taking a year off and not doing increases. I think that's something we do have the control over, and we should look at it. If we need to increase them, they should be as minimal as possible, because we've got to stop putting more burden on business owners while they try to restart and recover.
Gotcha. So the emphasis would be focusing more so on getting them to just start back up.
Yeah.
What about businesses that may have had to go under? So we're talking about Mount Tasia, even, who we recently learned are looking to sell, and other businesses that are kind of just on the edge, about to drop off, that maybe reopening wouldn't help them all the way. Would you support anything, city subsidies or anything along those lines to help them going?
Where we can, but as I mentioned in the forum last night, it's going to be more important that it comes from the state and the federal government, because realistically, it was the state government who put these mandates on that have stopped businesses from having any chance of opening. So if they're going to put the mandates on, right or wrong, they need to be one of the front runners to come in and say, this is how we're going to help subsidize and get you back online.
Now, do you feel the city's been advocating enough to the state and federal level on behalf of Santa Clarita's businesses?
I think they have been advocating. I think enough is relative. So for me, I've been advocating on a personal level, even not as an elected member. I mean, you can see my Facebook post when if I go to a small business and I find out they're having troubles or struggling, man, you get on the community page and you just let people know, because we get so lost in our own world trying to figure out how we're going to come back from COVID that we forget about these small businesses. So like local donut shops, or the California Bakery was one. I said, look, these people are struggling. If you can, just come out and buy something. And the response has been amazing. And I think that's the real heart of Santa Clarita, is people want to help. You just need people to get out there and tell them what they can do and how they can do it.
Another hurt population from this whole pandemic has been our student population. Obviously, having to do school from home is not as preferable as going actually physically to school. Now, obviously, specifics are left to individual school districts in terms of reopening, but what role do you feel the city can play in helping our students during this time?
No, I think you kind of hit it there, Mike. Like for us, we have a 4-year-old son who's in pre-K, but he has autism, and we don't have those people coming anymore that are working with him one-on-one. His small classrooms are gone. He's not able to learn and grasp and understand what's happened. So it's not simply just the kids are unable to get the education that they were used to. Now my wife and I are stuck trying to be the teachers as well, while we both still work full-time and we're trying to get help in. It's become very difficult. But to your point, yes, the school districts end up being ultimately responsible for when schools can get open, and that is their lane. But even though we all have our lanes, we're all on the same highway. And so I constantly say that there are things we can do, and I think the big one we do is we help with our community block grant program. So organizations like WISH that I'm a part of, one of the big things that the Heart District needs right now, while they're virtual and still looking to move into back to school, is they need Chromebooks. Kids need access to computers. They need access to tablets to access those things. So we offer grant programs. I think maybe if we can look to put a little more money into them so these organizations can get that money and get the resources that those kids need, I think that would be a big help from the city. And also, again, looking at public health, the schools look to the county health department to have the option to reopen. If that was something we had here internally, they could be applying to the city and not just to the county. So that is another option and why we should investigate it.
Now, shifting away from COVID, but still in the line of public health, we recently heard from officials with the Santa Clarita Valley Sheriff Station that fatal overdoses are on the rise in Santa Clarita, especially from a substance called fentanyl. What do you view the city's role in combating this opioid epidemic that is still ongoing and has been happening since before the pandemic?
It has, and unfortunately, I think the pandemic is starting to exacerbate the problem. Fentanyl is a terrifying drug. My dad was an anesthesiologist for decades at Cottage Hospital in Santa Barbara, and we have firsthand experience with morphine, from the sense of when my mom was getting ready to pass from cancer, that was one of the end-of-life cares that was provided. And you can see what that drug does, but to somebody who's using it recreationally, or maybe somebody that decides they want to try something and it's cut with fentanyl, it is extremely dangerous. It's 50 to 100 times more potent than morphine. But to your point, for what the city can do, the biggest thing we can do is what we're doing right now with the J team and the Sheriff's Department. You have to educate parents on what these things are. It's not just something you read in the newspaper every once in a while. This is something that has been around for, as we've talked about, has been in this city for a while. And the more information we can get out, the more that the city does to advocate information and get this to parents and say, these are the things you need to look out for. This is what we can offer and provide to the Sheriff's Department. And if there's more that we can do, and if the Sheriff's Department has more ideas, then we need to have that at the front of the table. And I think that can all circle back to what I want to do with the Public Safety Commission. I think all this falls into public safety as well, and that could be one of the tasks that they look into.
Now, can you explain to me what this Public Safety Commission you're talking about is for those who may not be familiar?
Sure. So I've been advocating since 2018 the formation of a Public Safety Commission at City Hall. So similar to your parks and recs, your arts, and your planning, I see it as a group of 5 individuals where public safety experts from fire, EMT, and sheriff as well, people from the community and just other experts in their fields can come to City Hall and start addressing issues that we have in Santa Clarita. Opioid issues is one. Traffic can be one because that gets related to safety. The issues we have with large fires that come here, we have county fire, but county fire looks at the fire as a county problem, and we need to start looking at it. What can we do citywide? Well, how are we protecting our open spaces? What are our emergency response plans to getting out of Sand Canyon when we have huge fires and we lose Placerita and we lose Sand Canyon Road? I mean, it's just a small touch of the ideas that we could have and need to start getting focused on full time. And I think that'd be the purpose of the Public Safety Commission in my mind.
Now, how does right now, as you know, there's a national conversation going on regarding the role of law enforcement in daily life. How does that play into your view of this Public Safety Commission in general?
Oh, no, I think it does play. And, we often talked about it at the forum last night. Our contract with the Sheriff's Department is that. It's a contract. We're a customer, and they're the supplier. So they handle everything on the internal sides in terms of policies and procedures. But as the number one customer and somebody who's vested in public safety, I think our input still matters. You always look for a customer's input on any product in order to make a better product. So I think having that relationship and those discussions with the Sheriff's Department will give us an understanding of what their policies are and why they do certain things, and then allow us the opportunity, again, from a different perspective to say, well, have you thought of this? Could we do this? Can we supply this? Do you need training for this? Again, it's the whole thing about there are different lanes, but we're all on the same highway.
Now, earlier you mentioned traffic as part of this Public Safety Commission. A recent survey from the city found that residents actually aren't as concerned with traffic as they used to be. It used to be the number one. It's down to number 2, but that's because COVID is now the number 1 concern.
Yep.
Do you think that indicates that traffic issues are starting to get better or not? And if so, either way, why?
No, I think traffic has, one, as you said, COVID has taken over everybody's world. So that's what the top of everybody's minds. But COVID, the byproduct is everything's virtual, everything's Zoom, everything's webinars. For people who are told to stay home and quarantine and limit how much you go out, well, people aren't commuting as much. People aren't in their cars as much. I think that has had a direct relation to the traffic decrease that we have seen. Not that that's a good way to have the traffic decrease, but I think as we get back on in the next couple of years, traffic's going to come back. It's going to be a key issue. We need to get our infrastructure built. We need the Santa Clarita Parkway. We need Via Princesa done. We need Magic Mountain. I mean, these are huge pieces of road infrastructure that have been on the books for a number of years. But until Portobello gets cleaned and gets finalized and what's happening there, until we can decide what the development can be there, but it has to include the road infrastructure, and we have to prioritize it. Otherwise, we're going to be waiting a long time and not just sitting in traffic.
Now, we're talking a lot about populations who will be struggling during the COVID pandemic. Another population that's very prominent in Santa Clarita is our veteran population.
They are.
Talk to me a little bit about how you would reach out and offer support to veterans on the City Council.
I think the city has been a very good partner in terms of veteran-related activities. The Veterans Day event that we do is phenomenal. We do stuff with the banner program around town. One thing I think we could look at doing is September 20th is POW and Missing in Action Day here in the United States. I think that's another way that we can keep focus on something that we tend to forget about. I mean, there's people that are still missing that haven't come home, and I think that needs to be something on all of our minds. One thing we may want to consider looking at is some sort of incentive program for veterans. I know that the college has something where they look at placing veterans in various business sectors, and they have an advocacy program there. I don't think there's any reason why the city shouldn't be involved in those talks as well, even if it's bringing veterans to city staff or finding ways that we can place them as well by working with the EDC and their live, work, and play efforts here in Santa Clarita to bring more business here. I think the veteran population is wonderful. It's a great resource, and we should utilize it.
All right, final question for you.
Uh-oh.
When we go to the ballot box, residents go to vote November 3rd. Give me a 2-sentence pitch. Why would we vote for Jason Gibbs?
Can these be real long run-on sentences?
Go for it.
No, Mike, I've been very active in this community for a number of years now. I think what sets me above a little bit is I don't just focus on things related to the city. I've been very involved with all of the city subcommittees in attendance and just learning and absorbing what the city does, but being involved with the Wish Foundation and understanding the Heart District, being part of the District Advisory Committee for the Heart District, the subcommittee for Bond Measure EE at Saugus Union, being involved with the Boys and Girls Club. I mean, I'm raising 2 young kids in this valley. I'm just so impressed with how clean and wonderful and the open spaces and the parks. I mean, this is the place that I want to raise my children. But I think to keep it that way, you need to be involved and be engaged, and not just show up when it's time to have your name on the ballot. It's to be engaged year-round, so people know you're invested. And I think if they look at who I am, go to www.electjasongibbs.com. You can learn about my priorities, my positions, and who I am, and I think I'll earn your vote.
This has been Jason Gibbs. We're doing our series on the city council race here at KHTS. Stay tuned. Coming up, we got 2 more candidates for you. Reporting live with KHTS, this is Michael Brown.
Using professional copy service probably 8-9 years ago.
Choosing the right copy service was a top